The Senior Bowl just wrapped up, so it's time to start looking towards what we're going to have for our Dynasty Rookie Drafts. I've got my top 12 picks as of right now. There's still plenty of players to review. We still have the Combine Pro Days coming up, but we're starting to get the framework of what this top 12 is going to look like, and I figured I might as well share what my Superflex top 12 would look like right now based on all the film I've watched, metrics I've studied, and really give you guys a landscape for what we're looking at as we move towards our draft. So stay tuned for more here on the Face Off Sports Network. And looking at our top 12, we have to remember I'm basing this simply on what the information is as of today and what I expect the mock draft to look like for me if I were picking in a super flex. So I'm always presuming it's super flex. So that will, of course, change things if it's not. But we've got the mock draft board up on the screen here, and I'm going to get us kicked off with what is going to be our first pick. Probably no surprise to anyone. It's going to be Jeremiah Love. And I think that Love is the guy that it's his spot to lose. He's most likely going to be a high-end draft pick this upcoming offseason. I expect high capital for him, likely in the first round. He's got a ton of skill set to his game. And I think the most important thing that he has is he has that receiving background to really, really bolster what he can do in fantasy. And when I watched him, in my mind, it reminded me a lot of Christian McCaffrey. Now, I'm not saying he's the tier of Christian McCaffrey because he's not. It's a little more Alvin Kamara based, in my opinion, than Christian McCaffrey. But he has that Texas route, the angles, the flats, the screens. He can do all that so well, and he goes out of the backfield an absolute ton. So wherever he ends up, he's going to be a big-time playmaker. I mean, he's been a guy that's been pretty consistent over the last 2 years, had over 1,000 yards at Notre Dame, 36 career touchdowns. That's a huge number from him. And when you throw on the tape, you can see it. I mean, his athleticism is there. He has the burst. He can hit big play home runs. Just in my opinion, I think he can just at times look like he's not the most elusive back when he's compared to these other guys at the top. So I was kind of talking with someone today of where are we going to slot him in. We'll see what the landing spot is, but I think he's going to probably fall somewhere in that 8 range at the running back position once he finally gets his landing spot. So we'll see what happens with him, but there's lots to like about what his game has. I mean, he's a 3-down bell cow. He's proven it through college that he did it against good competition. He can handle the workload, so I expect that to remain for him as we move forward. Moving right along to the 102 spot here. Again, in a super flex draft, we have to go with who is likely going to be the 101 overall in the real NFL draft, and that's going to be Fernando Mendoza. I think when we step back and look at the game of Fernando Mendoza, it could be a pretty good pairing with the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, he's going to step into a situation where he's going to have Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers. The wide receivers are a little bit concerning. Looking at the tape, I know Coach and I talked about in our video that came out yesterday on Fernando Mendoza. He looks like a really good pocket game manager. The athleticism simply not there. But what we know is that if a quarterback's going to get the high draft capital, we need to get them in Dynasty Fantasy Football because when they hit, their value shoots up and it'll triple what you had to pay for them right here. Even if he has an underwhelming year one, his value is still going to remain fairly consistent. And so it's someone that we should be looking to add to our rosters. If you're a quarterback needy team and you have the 102, you're probably in luck. You're more likely than not going to be able to get Fernando Mendoza. If you're looking to move into the top of the first round because you need a quarterback, I have my hesitations of wanting to go and get Mendoza. While he can be an on-time quarterback, he shows really, really good discipline. But at the same time, his talent level, I think, is capped. Coach and I, when we were talking in our video on Mendoza, we were discussing, is the ceiling Sam Darnold or a guy like, maybe Jared Goff? And those guys are very, very good, and that's a great comp if he hit that high. But I think his low is more around someone like Joe Flacco, because he's just sat you in the pocket. He's not going to be able to move around. At times, it looks like if he's getting blitzed and he gets off platform, he can't make those throws that you're expecting from some of these other big time passers that we've had the last few years, but he can absolutely sit in there and tear you apart. He's great in the RPO read, great shutting down defenses by diagnosing coverages, getting the blitzes picked up with his offensive line, and really finding a way to move forward. So I like Mendoza if I have the 102 and I need to go get a quarterback. I wouldn't hate trading out if you didn't necessarily need him, but that's going to be the 102 for me just because the pure value of the quarterback position. Carrying along at the 103, I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon. I think this begins the run of the wide receiver draft. We're kind of seeing that this class is expanding with a few more wide receivers. The draft capital is going to be huge. Mekhi Lemon is going to 100% be a first round pick. Whoever gets him, I think, is getting a really, really good player. And when I watch Lemon's game, a lot of people are going to compare him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, we have the USC connection there, but the slot usage is very similar. He has those same ball skills where he can really find a way to get open in space. He's super slippery. I mean, he finds a way to just, as soon as he gets the ball, he cuts upfield, makes a few people miss, and gets all those extra yards. So it does remind me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I also couldn't stop thinking about Ladd McConkey when I was watching him play. So I think Lemon is going to be a great addition for a team. I think he's going to get that early first round capital, probably within the first 15 picks. So I would expect a team to add this pass catcher to really elevate their receiving room. His nuances or weaknesses in his game, you could point to a few things. I think he's just not necessarily a superstar athlete, but generally speaking, he does enough to get the job done. He finds a way to get open. He has really solid hands. I think he's going to be a good player going forward. I'm really curious to see where he's going to end up falling. And the one thing I wrote down several times in my notes was the yak ability. Again, every time he catches the ball, he has the ability to move the ball downfield because he's always turning, looking to make a move. And sometimes we see some of these receivers, they just catch the ball and they fall, or they don't really know what their next step is going to be. That's not Lemon. I mean, he's got the ability to really get it done. Pretty solid production this past season at USC. Prior to that, he had an okay 2024 season, but that was really all the production he had. But he's only 22 years old. So there's lots to like about what he can do and what he's going to look like going forward. So the next name for me here at the 104 is going to continue the wide receiver run. And I'm going to go with Cardinal Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Certainly a player who had a coming onto the scene, if you will, 51 catches on the year, 875 yards and 9 touchdowns. Ordinarily we'd say, well, that's not a ton of production, but at the same time, it's a crowded wide receiver room at Ohio State, and it has been for several years. His stats were pretty much the same in 2024, so showed consistent play there. He's a bigger guy, going to be a big X. I mean, he's 6'3", so he's going to have the ability to stretch the field and really add a deep passing game to an offense. My concerns with Cardinal Tate is simply the production a lot of times came against lesser competition. Again, Jeremiah Smith was on that offense, and that kind of changes the way that they're going to function. Other great players are there as well, and they were there the year before that. We all know that. So Cardinal Tate had the big explosion onto the scene. I think he can be a solid player. I just don't necessarily have as high expectations. I think his ceiling, is certainly high. I mean, he could be a great player, as those big X's can be. I mean, we know if they stretch the field and they get those double-digit touchdowns, they're really going to excel. Contested catches, that's going to be his key. But looking at what I see from the other wide receiver in this class, and Lemon, who I had go before him, I think the floor for Cardinal Tate might be a little bit lower for Cardinal Tate. The real risk that comes with him is just, is he going to be able to be the guy that we thought he could be in college and was starting to look like in 2025? And can he carry that over to the NFL when the talent gets just a little bit better and the competition's a little bit higher? So I'm excited to see where he's going to end up going. He's another one of these guys that I expect to be a first round pick. So lots to like about his game. Again, he's below 22 years old, so there's still youth. There's still time for him to continue to grow. But I think he's one of these guys that's going to be locked in these top 5 picks, because the 3 wide receivers at the top, you can kind of rank them in whatever order you have. Obviously, he's the wide receiver 2 for me as it stands right now, but draft capital is going to certainly dictate with that landing spot. At the 105, I'm going to switch things up. A lot of people here would continue the wide receiver run, but I'm going to go with my RB2 as it stands right now. I've really focused on the running back class thus far this offseason, so I'm getting more into the wide receivers now. But the guy that stood out to me repeatedly was Emmett Johnson from Nebraska. A lot of people are starting to catch on to what his game shows. Early in the offseason, to me, it looked like he was around the RB4, sometimes 6 for some people. Now he's creeping into that 2-3 range for a lot of people. If he gets the draft capital, which, mind you, we're probably looking at him being a day 2 guy, I think he's going to shoot up these boards and fall somewhere around here. When I was watching his game, he is extremely well-rounded. I mean, he's one of these guys that's going to step into a big workload. He can be a 3-down back. He did it at Nebraska this past season with 1,400 rushing yards, insane production, over 120 yards per game on the ground. Can go out of the backfield too. That was the most surprising part for me. He looked really, really comfortable coming out of the backfield, catching the ball. I mean, he's got the jump cuts. He's really elusive. He's going to find a way to break a bunch of tackles. He was 4th in the FBS in yards. Yards after contact were really high for him as well. He's got relentless motor. I wrote that down several times in my notes. I really thought he found a way to make big plays. Now, I would say one knack on him would be he doesn't have that breakaway speed. He's not going to run away from a bunch of people, but he is absolutely going to open things up and get big chunk plays repeatedly. And his hands they're just fine. I mean, he runs hard. I was blown away by his tape. He's going to be 23 about the time he gets drafted and the year rolls around. But the age doesn't concern me. It's really going to be that draft capital. If he's a guy that ends up falling, maybe he doesn't have a good pro day and or combine, and he doesn't get that draft capital, we could easily see him become a 3rd-round running back. But as it stands right now, here at February 1st, to me, he's the RB2 and the clear RB2. His tape, I think, speaks for itself, and it is a very, very impressive tape if you get the time to go watch it. So check it out. Tons of production, both on the rushing side and the receiving side. And I think if you look at the metrics of what he did on a team that wasn't necessarily very good, he was pretty suitable. I mean, he forced tackles at a 25% missed tackle force percentage. So I'm comfortable with that. I think he's going to be a good player going forward. So I have him here at the 105. At the 106 spot, I'm going to go back to the wide receiver position. I'm going to go with Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. A lot of people are really high on him, and some people even have him as the wide receiver 1 of the class. And for me, I was a little underwhelmed when I watched the tape. Only 22 years old, so there's lots of room for him to grow. 2024 metrics were pretty good. We had over 1,000 yards this season. Only played in 9 games, so there's a little bit of a dip there, but only had 711 yards on the season, 8 touchdowns. Watching his tape, I just felt like there wasn't that extra thing to take him over the top. He didn't have that yak transition when he caught the ball. I always felt like he didn't really have a move in mind and just a lot of times ended up getting tackles. Now you can see that there's some really solid hands and some great catches that he'll make. But at the end of the day, I think it might cap what he can do. Really, the comp that came to my mind when I was watching him was Jahan Dotson, former wide receiver for the Washington Commanders, now with the Philadelphia Eagles. Just a really good guy that can catch the ball, but then nothing else really happens after that. So maybe that transitions in some touchdown success like Jahan Dotson had early with the Washington Commanders. But since then, he's done not really anything. And I think that his capital that he's going to get probably will be in that first round. Again, a lot of people really, really like what they're seeing from him. And again, he's got the hands, but to me, he's just a chain mover that's kind of just a guy. And I don't really think he's going to have that big bolster to go forward. There were some times where I thought his route running was a little bit less refined than you would like to see. That could be just because, again, maybe there was a little bit of issues there with the injuries. Maybe it's just one of those things of it didn't carry over with the offense because at times he was a little bit lazy when the play was away from him. But we see that sometimes in college where these guys know it's going to be on the opposite side of the field. They know their quarterback's not going to be able to transition to the other side. So they just kind of go through the motions. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think that he's going to find a way to get on an NFL roster, but if he can kind of clean up his route running, get a little bit more active in the run game, just simply by blocking, I think that's going to help keep him on the field and have him in a solid situation for him going forward. But Tyson, again, not my favorite player thus far this offseason. I'm really curious to see where he's going to end up. But for me, he's the wide receiver 3 right now. And we'll see what happens when we get some of these landing spots to see if maybe that changes. Because, again, I'm not very high on him. Moving right along at the 107, I'm going to go with Denzel Boston, wide receiver from Washington. This is the most recent tape I've watched. I'm still got a half of my games left to go through with him. really fun watch. I really like what I'm seeing from him. He looks like a guy who's going to be really good with the ball in his hands. He's got great hands. Route running, I think, is solid, above average. Going to be a pretty good player going forward. I think that it's going to be landing spot dependent for him. So if he can find himself in a good home, that's going to change everything. The potential for him, it's really high. How high is he going to get drafted? I don't think he's necessarily going to be a guy that's going to go in the first round, but it's certainly possible. I'm interested to see what he runs. His athleticism, I think, is going to be a little bit more difficult to really put a pin on. I mean, I think his breakaway speed isn't there, but you never know. I mean, if this 40 time comes back and it's pretty good, I think that's going to shoot his capital up, and he could easily vault himself into that first round, because I think whatever team drafts him is going to fall in love with the player that he is. He's going to be an ultimate red zone threat. He gets open. He'll catch everything. So I like Denzel Boston. I think he's going to be a good player going forward. At the 108, I'm going to go with Ty Simpson. Again, we're presuming that this is a super flex draft. So assuming that he's going to get a first round draft pick, that's probably what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be early. It's likely going to be in the teens, maybe in those 20s. Interested to see how he ends up throwing, if he does throw at the combine or the pro day. Ty Simpson had some ups and downs during his time at Alabama, but I think some team is going to think that he's serviceable enough to take a chance on. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Mendoza, is when we see these quarterbacks get the draft capital, we need to just go ahead and slot them in. I mean, we've seen what's happened over the last few years. These quarterbacks that do go later in our rookie drafts but have the capital to go with them end up outperforming what they have and becoming more valuable. Tyler Shuck just this past season absolutely outproduced his capital. Coach Tyler and I were screaming all offseason that we're drafting him any chance we can in the second round, and we even got some in the third round, and he absolutely has outproduced that massively, because when they're drafted this high, they're generally speaking going to be given a chance to start. And if Ty Simpson does end up, say, going to the Jets at pick 16 with their second pick, then absolutely you want to go ahead and take a chance on him to see what he can become, because he's going to have some weapons there to work with, like Garrett Wilson. And even if he struggles and the team says, hey, we're not sure, but we're going to roll with him again, his value remains. These quarterbacks typically have their value insulated. So at the 108, I'm more than happy taking a quarterback in a super flex league that could easily outproduce his value, or just become something where as of week one, you go, hey, I'm not really convinced that Ty Simpson's the answer. You could move him right then and there and recoup the value that you spent almost immediately, if not more. Because what we know is these super flex leagues, everyone is looking for an extra quarterback. Everyone wants to have two or needs to have two. And generally speaking, most teams want to have three to cover those bye weeks. So they will pay to get a guy like Ty Simpson and roll the dice if you don't want to have to make that choice. So he's a guy that I'm slotting in. I don't necessarily say that I'm believing in him, because I think it's going to be situation dependent. I think he still has a lot to prove. I was kind of hoping he would actually go back to school, which has kind of been what's happened with this draft class. I mean, what we know is the quarterback position is pretty weak so far. We'll see what happens with Bliss. There's definitely an argument that if he ends up going to the draft, because he's suing the NCAA, so lots of issues there, I would do the same thing. I mean, I was tempted to slot him in here at the 109 with the next pick, just because, again, the quarterback position, if they are taken high, which Chambliss could absolutely do the same thing as Ty Simpson, then we need to be putting them high in our mock drafts. This is a weaker class, so take advantage of that skill position at quarterback, because that is going to be extremely valuable going forward. Moving along, though, at the 109, I'm going to go with Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Again, we're assuming this is a super flex. The new thing is we're also doing a bunch of tight end premium leagues. So if you're in a tight end premium league and Sadiq gets the capital that a lot of people think he could get, which is top 15, that might even move his name up higher. There's still a lot for me to go through with the tight end class, so I'm not quite there where I'm ready to move him up high. But last year, I was one of those people that was drafting Loveland at the 105, 106 range, and before Tyler Warren multiple times. So these tight ends and tight end premium leagues, especially, if they get that capital, then we need to be paying attention, because that means the teams really, really like him. Kenyon Sadiq, uber athletic. He's a big time player. He's got the route running skills where he's going to have the ability to go downfield and make plays. He's got solid hands, contested catches, and not to mention he'll put his hand on the dirt and block. So I think Kenyon Sadiq is going to get that capital. He's going to be a first round player. Teams are already falling in love with him, and we're probably going to do the same thing in fantasy football. I've seen where some people are thinking he could be a top 3 dynasty tight end right away. I'm not that high. This is a good tight end class. There's lots of names to consider. And what we just saw with the last class and the big names and Bowers, McBride, and Tucker Kraft, there's lots of talent right now at the tight end position, which is nice because it used to be a wasteland of us trying to figure out who are the 12 best players to start each and every week. Now we're kind of getting some more names in there to fill the void there. So Sadiq is going to be one of those guys. I mean, he's going to be linked to teams like the Chiefs for obvious reasons. If they lose Kelsey, of course, you're going to hear about the Bengals. Wherever he goes, if he finds his way to pass volume offense that's going to, actually spread the wealth to the tight end position, he'll be a good player going forward. So I'm excited for what's in store for Sadiq because he'll probably test like a freak at the combine. At the 110, I'm going to stay within the tight end position, and I'm going to go with Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. Obviously, Vanderbilt jumped onto the scene. If you're unfamiliar with college football, they've been one of the worst programs. And then this season, they kind of really showed what they were. They were fighting for a playoff berth, and Eli Stowers was a big part of that. I mean, he was a big focal point of this Vanderbilt offense. He's really good getting downfield, solid route running, really good hands, and he's got elite athleticism. He's another one of these guys that like Sadiq, probably going to go to the combine or at his pro day and put on a show. He's going to have the measurables. He's going to show that ability. The question mark for him, I think, is a little bit more on the run blocking side. How high can he get drafted if he's not necessarily the best run blocker? We're seeing more and more teams expand to 12 and 13 personnel, so they're running more and more tight ends, which doesn't mean that he's not going to stay on the field, but it could limit his snaps if he's in one of those spots where they might have a good run blocking tight end that they want to trust to put out there for plays they know they're going to run, or that they want that option available to them. But all that to say, this is the opposite, I think, of kind of what we saw last year with Harold Fannin. I shouldn't say the opposite, but similar in the sense of Fannin didn't have great tape blocking, but if he put in some work to it, which we saw he did, it'll let him stay on the field. He continues to get better at it. Stowers can do the same thing. And he's a tight end that I think could end up going a little bit higher than what a lot of people expect. The tape, I think, is pretty good as well. So, and I know he's one of Coach's guys too. So Coach is going to talk a lot about him as we move forward through this offseason. So I'm excited to see what's in store for Stowers as he gets that draft capital and we get to see that testing where I think he could showcase that athleticism more than most people might think. Stowers also has some elite level yards per route run. When we compare that to other tight ends, he's over that 2-yard threshold. I believe it's 2.1 for his career. But when we compare that to some of the other big tight ends in the league, he's right there next to McBride, Loveland, Pitts, Tucker Kraft. And I think that's kind of one of those situations where he can really change his game and develop in an offense that might highlight him a little bit more. Pavia at Vanderbilt was a good college quarterback, but not the best passer. Their offense was a little bit limited at times. And if he can, again, get in some place where he can kind of open up his skill set, kind of like what we saw with Gadsden, what we saw with Harold Fannin, he could absolutely expand his game a little bit more and become a bigger fantasy threat for our teams. And looking at the 111, I'm going to go with Jonah Coleman, running back out of Washington. This is someone I think a lot of people are going to have him as their running back 2 or 3. Here, he's the running back 3 for me. And I'll be honest, I'm not thrilled with having him go here. I was tempted to go with Jadarian Price or maybe, someone else. But when I step back and look, he's probably going to get the capital from one of these teams. He's a 3-down back, tons of production during his time at Washington. He did kind of everything. So if you go back and look at what he did, he's a guy that's going to be able to stay on the field to catch the ball in the backfield. But really what I saw is he just kind of lacks that explosiveness, lacks that ability to really hit the hole and go. I found him to be dancing quite frequently as opposed to really just making a move and going. It looked like sometimes he avoided contact. And, I don't want to say that because there were times that he ran over people, but he was limited to me. And I saw a lot of Rachaad White in his game, and some people like Rachaad White, but me, I was never a fan. I'm not necessarily a fan of Jonah Coleman right now. If he's going to get that capital, which he's probably going to be one of the top 5 running backs taken in this draft, some people think he's going to be a day 2 pick. He could absolutely change and go up, just because when we're looking at the availability, we're looking at the landing spot, we have to keep that in mind. But Jonah Coleman for me is just someone that I'm not thrilled about getting on my team. Again, not a ton of explosiveness, not a ton of moves that he can make. He doesn't really have the big home run plays in him. And then pass pro, I found a lot of times that he just kind of dropped his head, would end up missing blocks or lead to a sack for the quarterback. And that's something where if he can't solve that problem, teams will take him off the field when it matters most. And we have to keep in mind that staying on the field is so important for these running backs, especially early, if they're going to be given that opportunity to be the 3-down guy. Closing out this draft, I'm going to go with Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver from Georgia, previously at LSU. And really what this comes down to is it's just for what his potential could be. The draft capital, I think, is going to be the most important thing. Some people think he's going to be a first-round pick, which would, I think, improve his value significantly. Some people think he might be a day 2 guy or even fall to the first of the 4th round. I'm not sure where he's going to go, but what I know is he is a significant playmaker with the ball in his hands. He's going to be one of these manufactured touch players where they're going to just find a way to get him in space and let him make a move because he's electric. He's got that ability to be on the, a kick return side. So if you're in a team that has that option, he could do that too. I think his yards and yards after the catch, really, really important. Similar to Luther Burden last year, where we knew Burden, when he had the ball at Missouri, he found a way to make plays and get downfield. Branch is the exact same way. His route runnings, it's fine. I'm not going to say it's elite. I don't think it's with the other guys. His hands, I think, are good enough to get by, but it's really just the fact of, can he get on the field and can he stay on the field? He's a smaller guy. He's going to have to be able to use that to his advantage, but he's certainly athletic enough in the NFL. I mean, we're talking about a legit athlete, so I think he's one of these guys that's going to test out of the water at the combine or his pro day, and the NFL is going to have to tell us how high we should be taking him, because that's going to be the biggest thing. But that's going to conclude my first round of a Superflex mock draft. Lots to look for as we move forward here. There's tons of stuff coming out here on the Face Off Sports Network, so be sure to subscribe. Check out the Discord. The link is in the description. It's free to join. Come in there, talk Dynasty Fantasy Football or redraft, whatever you're thinking, just football in general. We're in there talking to the community. At the same time, we've got our Patreon linked in there as well. You can join, get complete access to my Dynasty rankings, along with rankings of everyone else here at the Face Off Sports Network, and get some more rookie content that is coming down the line. So stay tuned for all of that. But until then, we'll catch you in the next one.